Everyone in town feared Veronica Hastings. She wasn't just rich, she had a way of making everyone around her feel small. Her words could ruin reputations in an instant, and her scorn made even the bravest people hesitate. Everyone tiptoed around her, afraid of becoming the next target of her sharp tongue or sudden anger. People whispered about her behind closed doors, but no one dared say anything to her face. Her husband, Richard Hastings, was powerful too, but he kept to himself. He wasn't cruel like Veronica, but he was distant, leaving most of the social control to her. Together, they seemed untouchable. When Emma Collins first arrived in town, she had no idea what she was walking into. She was young and determined, ready to make a life for herself after moving away from a small, struggling town. Finding a job as a waitress at the Hastings private club seemed like a good start. She wanted to earn her own money and gain independence, not knowing that the place she was stepping into was full of tension, fear, and unspoken rules. From her first day, she could feel the chill in the air. Staff members were polite but nervous, exchanging quick, anxious glances whenever Veronica appeared. The rich woman didn't need to raise her voice to make people scared, her presence alone was enough. Emma noticed quickly that Veronica thrived on control. Every detail had to be perfect, and anyone who made a mistake could expect harsh criticism. Waiters walked on eggshells, fearing the slightest slip. Some of the staff had been working there for years but still flinched when Veronica passed by, as if she could sense even the smallest hesitation. Emma's heart sank at first, feeling how unfair it was for the employees to live under constant anxiety. She wanted to do her job well, but she didn't want to be crushed by someone else's arrogance. Despite the fear surrounding her, Emma was kind and observant. She paid attention to how Veronica treated others and noticed cracks in the way she presented herself. People were intimidated, but that didn't mean she was untouchable. Emma kept her head down at first, learning the routines, observing the staff, and trying not to draw attention. She realized that understanding Veronica's personality would be key to surviving and maybe even changing the power dynamics. The tension was almost unbearable at times. Even simple orders or small mistakes seemed to turn into tests under Veronica's watchful eye. Emma could see the fear in the faces of her coworkers, and she felt a mix of sympathy and determination. She didn't want to be intimidated, and she certainly didn't want to let anyone else suffer under the same treatment. It wasn't long before she realized that surviving wasn't enough, she wanted to stand up in her own way. Every day, Emma learned more about the ways people could be crushed by power and fear. She saw the sharpness in Veronica's smile, the way she would single out someone for humiliation, and the fear it caused in the room. But Emma also noticed small signs of vulnerability, moments where Veronica's control wavered. It gave Emma a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, the tables could be turned one day. In that tense, elegant club where fear seemed to hover like a shadow, Emma found herself thinking about justice, about standing up without anger, and about the right time to make a difference. The story was just beginning, and she could feel that change was coming, slowly but surely. From the moment Emma started working at the club, she quickly understood why everyone feared Veronica Hastings. Veronica had a sharp tongue and a cruel way of pointing out mistakes. No one was safe, not the waiters, not the cleaners, and not even the guests who thought they were important. A dropped glass, a slow response, or a small error could earn someone a cutting remark that left them embarrassed in front of others. Staff learned to hide their feelings, smile politely, and hope that nothing they did would attract her attention. Emma tried to stay quiet and do her job well. She focused on carrying trays carefully, taking orders accurately, and keeping a low profile. But even from a distance, she couldn't ignore the unfairness of it all. She saw young waiters trembling when Veronica passed by, and she noticed how some longtime employees looked exhausted, carrying invisible weight from years of constant criticism. It made Emma angry, but she reminded herself that she was new and had to survive first. She needed to understand the rules of this place before she could think about standing up. Even as she stayed quiet, Emma began to notice cracks in Veronica's behavior. There were moments when her sharp confidence faltered, small slips that revealed insecurity. A guest who didn't laugh at her jokes or a staff member who questioned her instructions briefly made her pause. These tiny cracks gave Emma hope, though she kept those thoughts to herself. She knew that if she made a mistake by acting too boldly, she could become the next target of humiliation. The tension in the club was almost tangible. Every day, Emma saw staff working quickly but carefully, as if they were defusing a bomb. One wrong move and Veronica's anger could explode. Yet, she also noticed how some guests seemed uncomfortable around her. People who had once smiled politely now whispered quietly, exchanging glances when she raised her voice or made a cutting remark. It was clear that her arrogance had enemies, even if no one dared confront her directly. Emma began to understand that fear alone didn't make someone untouchable. Power could be questioned, and even someone as confident as Veronica had weaknesses. She observed how the staff communicated in secret, how small alliances formed quietly, and how everyone waited for a chance to challenge her without facing the full brunt of her wrath. The seed of revenge, subtle and patient, seemed possible if the timing was right. Even as she learned the ropes and adjusted to the pressure, Emma couldn't stop thinking about fairness and justice. She wanted to prove that strength wasn't just about fear or power. Watching Veronica mistreat people gave her a growing determination. She knew that surviving the club wasn't enough. She wanted to see a day when arrogance like Veronica's could be met with cleverness and courage. The environment was harsh and tense, but it was also a place where careful observation and patience could make a difference. Emma's quiet resilience began to grow, and she sensed that the story she was living wasn't just about serving tables, it was about standing up, learning the weaknesses of those who seemed untouchable, and preparing for a time when she could turn the tables herself. As Emma grew more comfortable at the club, she began to notice small flaws in the way Veronica managed things. Tables were sometimes set incorrectly, orders were repeated unnecessarily, and certain events didn't go as smoothly as Veronica liked to believe. At first, Emma kept her observations to herself, quietly fixing small mistakes before anyone noticed. If a guest was about to be served the wrong dish or a drink order was about to be mixed incorrectly, she stepped in discreetly, making sure everything went right without drawing attention. These small victories gave her a sense of control and quietly boosted her confidence. Veronica, on the other hand, remained arrogant and overconfident. She believed no one could outsmart her or notice her mistakes. One afternoon, during a busy event, she made a sharp comment about Emma's work in front of the other staff. "I hope you're not messing things up again, Emma," she said with a mocking smile, clearly trying to embarrass her. Emma smiled politely, ignoring the jab, and continued her work. Inside, she felt a mix of frustration and determination. Veronica's arrogance made her predictable, and Emma knew that her careful, quiet corrections would soon make a difference. Unfortunately, not everyone appreciated Emma's quiet competence. One senior staff member, Megan, had worked at the club for years and felt threatened by the attention Emma received. She didn't like seeing a newcomer handle tasks so smoothly while Veronica's anger seemed to target her instead. Out of jealousy, Megan decided to tell Veronica about the small acts of defiance Emma had been quietly carrying out. She framed it as if Emma was trying to undermine Veronica intentionally. When Veronica heard about it, her eyes narrowed. She had never expected anyone to challenge her authority, especially not someone so new. The revelation fueled her anger, but it also made her underestimate Emma. Veronica believed she could intimidate her easily and planned to mock her publicly again. She didn't realize that Emma's careful observation had prepared her for these moments. Even as Veronica grew more controlling, Emma's small victories continued. She learned to anticipate the rich woman's moods, the mistakes she might make, and the ways she could quietly correct things before they became disasters. Each small success, though unnoticed by Veronica, gave Emma strength. She realized that real power didn't always come from shouting or cruelty, it could come from patience, skill, and understanding when to act. The tension between Emma and Veronica began to grow, though it was subtle at first. Veronica mocked her publicly, while Emma quietly made sure everything ran perfectly. Staff members noticed the contrast and began to see Emma as someone reliable, even if Veronica didn't approve. This quiet empowerment, though small, was the first real step in shifting the balance of power in the club. Emma's frustration sometimes burned inside her, but it also fueled her determination. She knew that if she kept paying attention, staying patient, and acting strategically, she could eventually turn these small victories into something much bigger. Veronica's arrogance had become her weakness, and Emma was learning how to use it to her advantage. The Hastings estate was buzzing with excitement for one of their biggest gatherings of the year. Guests arrived in elegant dresses and sharp suits, and the staff worked quickly to ensure every detail was perfect. Veronica was in her element, moving through the crowd with her usual air of superiority. She had already decided that Emma, the new waitress, needed a lesson in respect. Earlier, Veronica had been watching Emma closely, waiting for the slightest mistake to humiliate her in front of everyone. As the evening progressed, Veronica finally saw her chance. Emma was carrying a tray of drinks through a crowded room when Veronica stepped in. "Careful, Emma," she said loudly, making sure all the guests could hear. "Wouldn't want you spilling anything and ruining the evening, would we?" Her tone was dripping with mockery. The other staff froze, and Emma felt the weight of every eye in the room turn toward her. She could feel the familiar burn of embarrassment creeping in, but she refused to panic. Instead, Emma took a deep breath and thought quickly. She noticed Veronica's long gown brushing against the edge of a decorative table. With a calm smile, Emma adjusted the tray just slightly, causing Veronica to trip subtly over the hem of her dress. Veronica stumbled forward, reaching out to steady herself, and in her attempt to regain balance, knocked over a decorative centerpiece. Crystal and flowers fell to the floor with a loud crash, drawing gasps from the guests. Emma remained poised, holding her tray perfectly steady, while the room fell silent for a moment before whispers began spreading. The guests couldn't help but notice the irony. The woman who prided herself on elegance and control had just embarrassed herself in front of everyone. Emma's calmness and quick thinking made the scene even more striking. Veronica's face turned red, and she tried to laugh it off, but it was clear that her perfect image had cracked. People exchanged glances, some stifling smiles, and quietly started whispering to one another about the incident. Emma felt a quiet surge of satisfaction. For the first time, she had not only survived one of Veronica's attacks but had turned it into a moment of triumph. The room had seen Veronica falter, and the seed of doubt about her untouchable image had been planted. Guests who had once treated her with awe were now quietly reassessing her. Staff members looked at Emma with new respect, recognizing the courage and cleverness it took to act so quickly under pressure. After the initial shock, Veronica tried to regain control, speaking more sharply and attempting to redirect attention. But the mood of the room had shifted. People were no longer just fearful, they were intrigued and quietly amused by the reversal. Emma's careful planning and calm composure had shown that even someone as powerful as Veronica could be outsmarted with intelligence and presence of mind. By the end of the evening, Emma knew that this was only the beginning. The first major humiliation had not only shaken Veronica's image but had also strengthened Emma's confidence. She realized that patience, observation, and quick thinking could turn fear into opportunity. The momentum towards something bigger was building, and Emma felt ready for the challenges ahead. After the incident at the party, Emma realized that she couldn't rely on quick thinking alone. She needed a plan to protect herself and slowly shift the balance of power. Quietly, she began befriending the other staff members. Many of them had worked under Veronica for years and had endured endless criticism and humiliation. They were hesitant at first, wary of anyone new, but Emma's kindness and discretion slowly won their trust. She listened to their stories, shared small laughs, and offered support when Veronica's anger made the workday unbearable. At the same time, Emma started noticing influential town members who had also been on the receiving end of Veronica's arrogance. Some had been excluded from events, slighted in conversations, or publicly embarrassed. Emma found polite ways to engage with them during gatherings, offering impeccable service and showing respect. Over time, these small gestures built connections. She never boasted or drew attention to herself, instead, she quietly earned respect and trust. These alliances gave Emma a sense of safety and a network of support she could rely on when needed. Veronica, meanwhile, began to show cracks that few people noticed at first. She grew more controlling, checking on every detail obsessively and questioning staff unnecessarily. There were moments when her confident facade faltered, a glance of doubt here, a nervous frown there. She started double-checking everything Emma did, but Emma remained calm and precise. Veronica's paranoia was growing, and it made her appear more unstable to those around her. Even the guests, who once admired her sharp authority, began sensing something off. Emma also observed Richard Hastings more closely. He had always seemed distant, but recently, she noticed small signs of disapproval toward his wife's behavior. He would sometimes glance at Veronica with quiet concern, stepping in subtly to smooth over conflicts or calm situations without drawing attention. While he hadn't spoken out directly, his actions suggested that he disagreed with the way she treated staff and guests. Emma took note, understanding that even someone as powerful as Veronica could face opposition quietly from within her own household. The tension in the club grew slowly, almost imperceptibly. Veronica's paranoia and insecurity created a sense of instability that Emma could feel. At the same time, the trust Emma was building with staff and influential town members gave her quiet confidence. She knew that patience would be essential. One wrong move could undo all her efforts, but careful observation and planning could turn the situation to her advantage. By the end of this period, Emma was no longer just a new waitress, she was becoming someone people respected and quietly supported. Her alliances, both with co-workers and with influential outsiders, gave her a hidden strength. She understood that change wouldn't come all at once, but the slow build of trust and the subtle shifts in Veronica's behavior created a foundation for what was to come. Emma's strategic patience was laying the groundwork for a bigger, more decisive moment. Veronica's frustration was growing every day. No matter how hard she tried, Emma seemed calm, capable, and even respected by the staff and some of the town's influential members. What made it worse was Richard's quiet support of Emma. He never openly challenged Veronica, but he often stepped in to smooth situations where she tried to be cruel. A gentle word here, a nod there, Richard's subtle approval of Emma's work frustrated Veronica more than anything. She hated feeling outsmarted, especially by someone she considered beneath her. Determined to regain control, Veronica began plotting against Emma. She spread rumors among the staff, claiming that Emma was trying to manipulate people to gain favor. She gave Emma impossible tasks, expecting her to fail in front of everyone. She questioned Emma's abilities publicly, trying to catch her in mistakes. Veronica believed that if she humiliated Emma enough, the staff would stop trusting her, and she could restore her image of power. But Emma had learned a lot from the past months. She stayed calm even when the task seemed impossible. Instead of panicking, she carefully planned how to handle each challenge. When Veronica set her up to fail, Emma found ways to turn the situation around. If she was asked to serve multiple tables in a confusing order, she did it with precision and grace, making the guests impressed rather than seeing chaos. When rumors were whispered, Emma handled questions politely and professionally, never defending herself aggressively, but letting her competence speak for her. Slowly, Veronica's attempts to sabotage Emma backfired. Every time she tried to humiliate her, Emma found a way to succeed, making Veronica look impatient and irrational instead. Guests and staff began noticing the contrast, Emma's calm efficiency against Veronica's increasing frustration. Veronica's anger became more visible, and her arrogance started to crumble under the pressure she herself had created. Emma's sense of empowerment grew quietly but strongly. She knew she was not just surviving Veronica's attacks, she was turning them into opportunities. Each impossible task she completed, each rumor she quietly disproved, and each mistake she avoided made her stronger and more confident. It was a slow, silent revenge, but it worked better than any public confrontation could have. Even Richard noticed the difference. While he remained discreet, he occasionally gave Emma a reassuring glance or a small word of encouragement. It was subtle, but Emma felt supported, which further fueled her determination. Veronica's personal betrayal, thinking her control was absolute and Richard would always side with her, only strengthened Emma's resolve. By the end of this period, Emma had transformed from a cautious newcomer into someone who could quietly outsmart Veronica at every turn. The emotional tension was high, but it was balanced by Emma's growing confidence and sense of justice. Each act of sabotage, instead of breaking her, became a step toward turning the tables, showing that true strength could come from patience, intelligence, and quiet resilience. The night of the annual charity gala at the Hastings estate was finally here. The entire town's elite had gathered, and the house was filled with sparkling lights, music, and the hum of polite conversation. Veronica had been waiting for this event for weeks. She saw it as the perfect opportunity to humiliate Emma publicly, to remind everyone that she, and only she, held control. Emma knew this was coming and had spent the past days preparing quietly. She observed Veronica's habits, predicted her attacks, and planned ways to stay calm and turn the situation in her favor. As the event began, Veronica moved through the crowd with her usual air of superiority. She whispered instructions to staff, ensuring that everyone was under her watchful eye. Emma stayed close but composed, keeping a careful count of every tray, every guest's need, and every potential trap Veronica might set. She noticed how Veronica loved to point out mistakes loudly, especially during moments when guests' attention was focused on the staff. Emma reminded herself to stay steady and use patience as her weapon. The moment came when Veronica tried to strike. She had arranged for Emma to carry a large tray of drinks across a crowded room filled with important guests. Veronica positioned herself to call attention to any slip, preparing to mock Emma in front of everyone. Emma, however, had anticipated the move. She steadied the tray, moved with confidence, and made sure nothing spilled. Guests watching were impressed by her poise, even before the first words of mockery came from Veronica. Then Veronica tried another tactic. She made a loud, sharp comment, attempting to distract Emma and draw attention to her presence. "Careful, Emma. Don't ruin the night for everyone," she said, her tone meant to humiliate. Emma smiled politely and kept moving, making it appear as if she had heard nothing at all. Suddenly, Veronica's carefully positioned centerpiece wobbled because of her own distracted movement. In a moment of irony, she stumbled slightly and spilled a small decorative arrangement onto the floor. Gasps and quiet laughter rippled through the guests. The room noticed the twist immediately. Veronica's attempts to control the situation had backfired. Instead of Emma being embarrassed, Veronica looked flustered, unsteady, and ridiculous. Guests whispered among themselves, exchanging surprised glances. Some had admired her power before, but now they could see her arrogance and overconfidence had made her vulnerable. Emma moved with grace, completed her tasks flawlessly, and gained quiet admiration from everyone watching. By the end of the night, the turning point was clear. Veronica's carefully laid plans had failed, and Emma had succeeded without ever raising her voice or drawing unnecessary attention. The balance had shifted, and Emma felt a rush of quiet triumph. She had proven that patience, observation, and calm intelligence could outmatch arrogance and cruelty, even in front of the town's elite. This evening marked more than just a victory for Emma. It was the moment when she truly gained power over her own fear and began to change how everyone saw Veronica Hastings. The suspense, the careful planning, and the flawless execution all combined to create a dramatic shift, setting the stage for what was yet to come. After the gala, Veronica could no longer hide her frustration. Emma had outsmarted her in front of the town's elite, and it stung deeply. She decided to confront Emma privately, away from the staff and guests. She found Emma in a quiet corner of the estate, polishing glasses for the next service. Veronica's voice was cold and sharp. "Do you think you're clever, Emma? Do you enjoy making me look foolish?" Emma looked up calmly, meeting Veronica's gaze without fear. She had anticipated this confrontation and had prepared herself mentally. "I don't enjoy making anyone look foolish," she said quietly. "I just don't stay silent when I see cruelty or injustice. I've seen how you treat the staff, the guests, and even your own husband sometimes. I won't participate in it, and I won't let it slide quietly anymore." Veronica's eyes narrowed. She tried to intimidate Emma with her usual arrogance, pointing out every small mistake she thought Emma might have made. "You think you're better than me? You think I can't crush you with a word?" Emma stayed composed. She spoke with steady confidence, revealing truths Veronica had tried to hide. I know how you spread lies about the staff, how you manipulate situations to make yourself look perfect, and how you pretend kindness when it suits you. I've seen it all. People aren't blind to your cruelty anymore." For the first time, Veronica seemed taken aback. Her usual sharp control faltered. She opened her mouth to reply, but Emma's calm, honest words cut through the tension. Emma didn't shout or accuse, she simply spoke the truth. The hypocrisy Veronica had relied on to maintain power was now exposed in plain sight. The more Emma spoke, the more Veronica's anger turned to embarrassment. Veronica's face paled, and her voice shook as she tried to respond. She realized that Emma had seen through her carefully crafted persona. She had no support here, no one to intimidate, and no clever word to regain control. For once, the fear and respect that everyone had given her were gone. Her power had crumbled in front of someone she considered beneath her. Emma felt a rush of emotion, a mix of relief, strength, and vindication. Years of witnessing cruelty, fear, and arrogance were finally being challenged, and she had the courage to stand firm. The confrontation was not about revenge through humiliation, it was about revealing the truth and reclaiming dignity for herself and for those who had suffered quietly for so long. Veronica's collapse was subtle but undeniable. Her sharpness, her arrogance, and her control all began to fall apart. Emma remained calm, watching the shift in her expression, feeling a quiet sense of justice. The confrontation ended without a scene, but the impact was clear. Veronica was no longer untouchable, and Emma had faced the storm without losing herself. By the time Emma walked away, she felt lighter. The emotional weight of fear and anxiety had lifted. She had confronted cruelty directly, revealed the truth, and held her ground. For Emma, it was not only a victory, it was catharsis, the emotional release of finally standing up to someone who had ruled through fear for far too long. After the private confrontation, word of Veronica's behavior and the way she had been exposed quietly spread through the town. People who had once admired her power and wealth began to see her in a different light. Guests at the gala and other social gatherings whispered about the incident, and slowly, Veronica's untouchable reputation began to crumble. She was no longer seen as a figure of awe, instead, people noticed her arrogance and cruelty. Invitations to events became fewer, and her influence over staff and townspeople weakened. Richard Hastings, who had watched Emma handle everything with grace and intelligence, began to recognize her strength in a way he hadn't before. He appreciated her calm determination, her ability to manage tense situations, and the quiet way she stood up to his wife. Richard realized that Emma wasn't just a competent employee, she was a person of integrity, someone he could respect and rely on. While he still kept a polite distance, his subtle gestures of acknowledgement, small compliments and words of encouragement, made it clear that he valued her presence and the way she conducted herself. For Emma, the fallout marked a turning point in her life. She no longer felt like a newcomer trying to survive. The respect she had earned from staff, guests, and influential town members gave her confidence she had never experienced before. People sought her out for advice, guidance, and reassurance, and she carried herself with a quiet strength that came from overcoming months of tension and intimidation. Her patience, observation, and careful planning had paid off, and she finally felt stability in her work and life. Even among the staff, Emma became a figure of inspiration. Those who had once cowered under Veronica's authority now looked to her for guidance. She helped them navigate tasks with confidence and treated everyone with fairness and kindness, earning genuine loyalty. Unlike Veronica, who ruled through fear, Emma's authority came from respect, competence, and empathy. Veronica, meanwhile, struggled to regain her previous influence. Her arrogance and cruelty were no longer tolerated, and people began avoiding her or questioning her decisions. She had lost the respect and fear that had once defined her. While she still had wealth, her social power was greatly diminished. The once dreaded wife of the rich man had become a cautionary tale of pride and arrogance. Emma's growth was steady but undeniable. She had turned a dangerous, fear-filled environment into a place where she could thrive. Her confidence allowed her to take on more responsibilities, earn recognition, and feel secure in her role. The empowerment she gained was quiet but strong, built on patience, intelligence, and the ability to face challenges without losing her dignity. By the end, justice had been served without chaos or drama. Emma's subtle triumph was complete. She had outsmarted cruelty, earned respect, and created stability for herself and others, proving that true strength comes from patience, resilience, and integrity rather than intimidation or power. Looking back on everything that had happened, Emma thought about how much she had grown. When she first arrived at the Hastings estate, she had been nervous, unsure of herself, and intimidated by Veronica's constant criticism and cruelty. But over time, she had learned to stay calm, observe carefully, and act with patience. Her courage had kept her moving forward even when fear tried to hold her back. Her intelligence had helped her anticipate Veronica's attacks and turn them into opportunities. And her integrity had guided her through every challenge, keeping her actions fair and respectful even when she could have retaliated harshly. Emma realized that true strength didn't come from lashing out or trying to humiliate someone in return. Real power came from strategy, careful planning, and maintaining dignity. By staying composed, helping others, and quietly standing up to cruelty, she had achieved something far more meaningful than simple revenge. She had not only protected herself but also changed the way people saw her and the way they treated others. Her growth had been steady, earned through effort and patience, and it had made her stronger in every way. Veronica's downfall had been a lesson in humility for those who had underestimated Emma. The once feared woman had lost the respect of the town, and her arrogance and cruelty had left her isolated. People no longer treated her with awe, and her influence had faded. Meanwhile, Emma's reputation had grown. She was respected by staff, guests, and influential members of the town. People admired her calm confidence and the way she handled difficult situations with intelligence and grace. She had become someone who others could look up to, not out of fear, but out of genuine respect. Emma had also learned to trust herself. She realized that relying on her own abilities, staying patient, and acting thoughtfully could overcome even the harshest challenges. She no longer felt anxious or powerless. Instead, she felt a steady sense of confidence and independence. She could navigate any situation with dignity, and she had earned a place in the town where her presence was valued. As she moved through her days, serving guests, guiding staff, and participating in the town's events, Emma felt a quiet satisfaction. She had faced cruelty and betrayal and had come out stronger without losing her principles. Her life had shifted from fear and tension to stability and respect. She knew that challenges might come again, but she now had the courage, intelligence, and integrity to handle them. The final image was clear in her mind. Emma thriving, independent, and respected, moving forward with confidence and calm strength, while Veronica's arrogance faded into irrelevance. The town had witnessed a quiet but powerful shift, proving that patience, strategy, and dignity could triumph over cruelty and fear. Emma's story ended not with chaos, but with justice, growth, and emotional closure, leaving a lasting sense of empowerment for herself and those around her.